So my original thought in coming to Japan was just to lay low for about a month, and then I would come back to Calgary. And so I came to Japan, and I never went back. It was 1 month turned into 29 years.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Founders in the Wild. I'm your host, Dave Morey. Today we are in beautiful Steveston, British Columbia, Canada. This is my commute into work right along the mighty Fraser River. And you may notice I'm not with my guest today. So unfortunately, he is 7,000 kilometers away in Sendai, Japan. We actually tried to film this episode when I was in Japan back in February. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it happen, but we are going to make it happen today, thanks to our phones and our camera gear. Hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you. Hi, I'd like to welcome our guest and fellow Canadian, David Halton. David is the founder and CEO of sports and wellness company BodyPlus International and the former owner and chairman of the Sendai 89ers basketball team. David, thank you for joining us all the way from Sendai, Japan. We're really excited to have this conversation with you today. So you've been in Sendai now for 29 years, right? But I'd like to go way back, so even further. So you're also a fellow half Japanese Canadian. Maybe tell me a little bit about where did you grow up and what brought you to Japan 29 years ago?
Okay, that's the shocking story that a lot of people don't believe now when I tell them. But so I was born in Edmonton, Alberta, and moved to Calgary when I believe I was about 3 years old. So I don't remember Edmonton at all, but I grew up in Calgary, Alberta. And my mother's Japanese, and your father's Japanese, right, Dave?
He's Nisei, so I'm Sansei. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, so Japanese mother, Canadian father. And I grew up, basically my father passed away when I believe I was around 5 when he passed away. And I actually didn't learn the cause of his death until quite recently, it's maybe 7 years ago or so. But he had committed suicide. And I just heard that recently, but so I don't really have too many memories of my father. My mother and my father had divorced when I was, I believe, 1 or 2. So growing up with a single Japanese mom, so she was an immigrant in Canada, and I remember, for some reason these situations in your childhood, they kind of stick with you, stick in your mind. But in my memories, I always saw my mother, calculating, trying to pay the bills and whatnot. So I had always had this sense of non-financial freedom. I thought freedoms came from finances, and my mom was always working. So she had her regular job. I believe she worked with Mitsubishi Shoji or something like this. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, she would take Japanese tourists out to Banff. So, I'd come home after school and no one was there. I have an older sister. And one time I came home after being teased or bullied for riding my sister's hand-me-down bike. So it was a girl's bike with these, pink streamers coming out, and the rounded bike with it was a girl's bike anyway. And
I can relate. I had 2 older sisters.
You know which one I'm talking about? The one not
I know
for guys,
exactly
right?
the one you're talking
the curve.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be riding that.
Yeah. So anyway, I came back. I think I got in a fight over it, and I came to my mom and I told her, "Look, Mom, I really need a BMX. All my friends were riding BMXs, and I'm getting in fights. And so if I don't get a guy's bike, a BMX bike, people are saying that we're poor, right? And then she looked at me and she said, David, we are poor. And to me, that was really shocking, because as a kid, you don't really understand. Everything is normal to you in whatever normal situation you appear to be in. That's the norm. And I thought being poor was the image I had of the UNICEF commercials of children in Africa with not enough food to eat that day. But she said, in reality, I don't have an extra $100 this month or probably this year to buy you a bicycle. And for some reason, I talked to my mom after that, the last time she was here. I said, do you remember that? And she said, no, I don't remember that. But that really, ignited a fire in me that I never wanted the feeling of not being able to buy something or have something. So, basically from that day, I was set on just becoming rich. And then looking back on it recently, I think I thought that if I was, if I had enough money, then possibly my mom would be with me more. She might have spent more time with us and didn't have to work as much. So I probably had that, and that really drove me to make money. So at the time I was, probably, I think I was around 10 or something like that. But I would do everything that, as a kid growing up in Canada that you can do to make money, which is, probably something you might have done is, the newspapers, and then,
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, and it's a great moneymaker growing up in the Canadian, growing up in Canada, because you have the different seasons, and people generally have big lawns out there. So I would, in the summer, I would mow lawns for, all of the elderly in my neighborhood. In the winter, I would shovel the snow.
I'm sure you were shoveling snow.
Shoveling snow, and then raking leaves, right?
Yeah.
So you got a pretty good income, and then for what you can do as a kid. And then from there, when I was about 15 years old, just because I wasn't home a lot, nobody was home, so I started hanging out with other kids that had a similar situation, where maybe they didn't have the family structure, both parents home, and more of a guiding structure, or guiding, parents. So we didn't know it at the time. No one thinks you're a bad kid, but we kind of started doing, doing things that were considered, against the law anyway. So.
Yeah. But I think at that time, your friends, everybody else was doing it. It felt probably like the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was always geared to to make money, and when I found out, how much money there is to be made, and when you're not breaking the law, of course I don't recommend it, but it's and that's why it seems like the easy way to make money, because you don't have to pay taxes, and it's preying on people. But so I got kind of heavily into that, and there was kind of a famous gang war in Canada, infamous, if you want to call it, in Calgary, and it unfortunately it wound up that there was 25 people killed in, I believe it was 2 years. So this is, so I think it was, in history, in Canadian history, it was like the most fatal gang war. But the kids that I grew up with, these were the younger kids, and so things had escalated really seriously by the time I was 19. So I remember I just turned 19, and things were just starting with that gang war. When I came to Japan, it was about 3 years after that things really, people started killing each other seriously. But I grew up with those kids, and those people were slightly younger than me, but that was just the cusp of it. And so one day I got in a fight and I got stabbed and slashed with a knife. So I had to go to the hospital, and I went to my mom's house to pick up my insurance card. And this is 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm banging on the door. I'm all bloody. My mom answers the door. What the hell are you doing? And so at that time, my sister was living in Sendai, and my sister, she was living, well, about 100 kilometers from here in a small city, but she was teaching English. And my mother had called my sister and told her that, look, we got to get David out of this situation he's in, get him out of Calgary. So I believe it was, like 2 days later, or even the next day it might have been, my sister called me up and she said, why don't you come out to Sendai and just chill out for a bit and have fun. It's a great place, et cetera, et cetera. And so my original thought in coming to Japan was just to lay low for about a month, and then I would come back to Calgary. And so I came to Japan, and I never went back. It was 1 month turned into 29 years. But yeah, so I my last day of school, I believe I was 16, and the constable of the school came, and I was arrested, and I never went back to school. So officially, in Japanese they call it chusotsu. So I've got a junior high school diploma is my last one. So School of Hard Knocks, but that's my story.
Yeah, I saw that on your LinkedIn. My dad went to the School of Hard Knocks as well, and he's grew up and said that's the best school to go to, School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, well, it gives you the street smarts, and then looking back on it, I learned a lot of what I use in business now. It was a lot of branding and all of that stuff. So
indeed. All right, so that's getting you to Sendai, and now, I mean, for a lot of people who don't know Japan, Sendai it's a big city, but it's not perhaps the main center of commerce. When you think of Japan, you think of Tokyo, you think of Osaka, but you've done incredibly well basing yourself out of Sendai. You've had huge success. Take us back to the early days. When you started BodyPlus International. This is 1999, I think. Tell us about what actually inspired you to start that business.
Well, I had come to Japan several times when I was growing up. So, my mom, she had saved up enough to send my sister or me to Japan by ourselves, just for summer holidays. And there was one time that really stuck in my head. I think I was 14 or 15, and the first time I saw Tokyo. So I came out of the station, and it was in Marunouchi. And I saw the big. That's the financial district of Tokyo, as you know. Complete, opposite of Calgary, what I was used to, and I just knew from seeing that the financial district that I was going to have a business in Japan someday. So I came into Sendai, and pretty much immediately I was back into the program of searching for the business that I was going to do. And at the time, I still didn't know what it was. I knew it was going to be some kind of a trade, some kind of a product. I thought maybe I would import something from Canada and sell it on the market, but I really had no idea. I just knew that I was going to create a business and eventually have a big office in Tokyo. And so I after being here for a couple months, I needed a job, I needed some income, so I started working as an English teacher. Back then there was very few English-speaking foreigners, so me with my junior high diploma, but I was a warm body that spoke English without an accent. So they threw me in front of a bunch of students, but I was also at that time, since I was basically 14, weight training or just working on the gym was the thing that gave me a sense of kind of hope, and then also probably the only discipline I had in my life. And then I knew with hard work and the correct amount of effort that results come. So I'd always been at the gym, since I was 14. I probably didn't go a month without training at the gym. So I came to Japan and I was training at the gym. And in Canada, I grew up with an interest in supplements for some reason. So there's training, there's all kinds of training methods, but I was interested in the supplements, protein powders and then amino acid powders, even as a youth. So I would go into those supplement stores and just kind of hang out and talk to the guys, and they would tell me how the proteins and these supplements work, and I had an interest in that area. So I'm in Sendai, I'm looking for supplements. I couldn't find anything. And then my now wife, but at the time she was my girlfriend, and she brought a Japanese weightlifting magazine. She gave me a Japanese weightlifting magazine, and in the back there was an ad for some American brand supplements. It's called personal import. So you're allowed to purchase from a company that ships directly from the US to Japan for personal import use. And so then it occurred to me that, wow, this business exists in Japan, and I know the best products, and I could do this, definitely better than anyone else in Japan. So that was the aha moment for me. And I decided this is what I'm going to do. And from there, it was just all kinds of learning and mistakes and up and down and whatnot. But
and you were funding this just purely from income from teaching English at the time, or had you kind of gone and found other ways to make money?
Yeah, so I would just be teaching English, and the income wasn't too bad, but it was not a lot of startup income. But I would so in the evenings, actually from the start, I tried to figure out how to create a business and get the import licenses and whatnot from. There's an organization that helps, support trade in Japan called JETRO. I think you know it. Everybody knows it.
Oh yeah.
But I went there, and I couldn't really explain what I wanted to do, and they had no idea. So, I just thought I'd try it, right? And I would contact. So this is pre-internet, right? Pre-internet, so it was all done by fax and phone calls, way back when it was super expensive. But I would come home after teaching English, and then at night, I would call up or fax US brands and tell them that I'm starting this business and I wanted to be their exclusive distributor in Japan. And for that, I need, international rates, but I'll blow up your brand in Japan, right? And this is, pre-internet, so they, all things are, I believe I'm a really lucky guy. But so the timing was right for those brands and myself. So they had no one else into Japan, and they didn't know I was working out of a tiny apartment. So I was signing distribution agreements, and generally, therefore, like a minimum of, I believe at the time it was like 100,000 US in trade per year, an annual, to be able to have an exclusive distributorship. But I was just, signing them. I didn't have any doubts, and I didn't really have any other choice either, right? So I would contact and contract with all of the main, like, big brands in the US to become their Japanese distributor. But before that, I needed samples of all the products. So they would send samples over, and I would try them all, obviously, and then the ones that I like and I thought had potential, I would sell them. So I would actually sell the samples that came over.
Even better, 100% margin.
So yeah, that became the right, and it was actually kind of I didn't have the intent on doing that, but I would use the products in the gym and in the locker rooms and whatnot. And my gym buddies, the Japanese gym buddies I had there, they would always ask, what are you drinking? What are you trying? And so I would give them, just try this, tell me what you think. And they loved the product, and they would say, next time you order, please order for me. So by the time I realized it, I was kind of bootstrapping, cash flowing it from the manufacturers themselves by sending all the samples, and I would sell them, which led to some problems later on because the personal import, there's regulations on the amount of product you can import for personal use. So I didn't know that because they were sending as samples. So I thought that, okay, these products are okay by terms of import regulations into Japan. So I would, I didn't have a lot of money, but I managed to have the brands so interested into getting into Japan that they gave me payment terms. And usually, in international trade, even to this day, I don't think most people don't give payment terms. But a lot of the guys I had a good relationship with, number one, and then number two, a lot of foreign brands just kind of just want to be in Japan anyway.
Sounds good.
They'll almost
it sounds
pay
good
to be
for
in
them,
Japan,
right? I'm selling.
Yeah, it sounds great, right? It's
and
like,
so they were basically funding you
Yeah.
with their inventory.
Yeah. And they basically funded us and provided like marketing and advertising support. So further on down the road, they would provide like X amount. I would negotiate to get X amount in product for advertising, right? For advertising in the Japanese market. And then from that, I actually funded my own magazine. So created my own media. Instead of using those dollars to buy advertising in magazines, I created my own magazine and got subscription. But that was a little bit later.
David, maybe you could tell us, the audience probably doesn't know how you've actually chosen to sell your product. Can you speak to, especially at the beginning, what was your strategy to actually sell it into the market? Grocery, retail, direct to consumer. What was your kind of immediate, or did it evolve over time?
It evolved over time, but initially I would get product, and I was kind of testing the market. I didn't. It wasn't a deliberate thing, but it was more of a necessity. So I would have all of the product samples, and then I would take them. I would actually stuff a big duffel bag, sit on the train, and then go to bodybuilding shows. And look, thinking back about this, you can laugh about it, but I didn't know, and I probably even didn't care. I definitely didn't care to research it, but I would take, stuff a duffel bag full of product, and then I would go to a bodybuilding show and just sit in the lobby of they're held at some community center or something like this, and I would sit in the lobby and just kind of set up a booth, like a makeshift booth, right?
That's awesome.
And the guys would come out and say, do you have a permit here? Because you have to be a sponsor of the show. We have other sponsors that are selling, the legacy brands. And I didn't understand them, or I pretended not to understand them. But all of the bodybuilders would, number one, I was a lot bigger back then, so they were, and it was kind of unique, U.S. products, right? And U.S. is the leaders in that, that technology and that space back then. So all of the guys would, they would bypass all of the paid for sponsors and the booths of the industry at that time, and they would come out to the lobby and, buy my product, right? So I would do things like that, and then so they were asking, and this is just local because I still had a full-time teaching job anyway. But I would get names and numbers, and then they would end up coming to my small apartment, and I set up like a little shop basically there. And so my goal was, to eventually have enough money to have an advertisement for mail order in Japan. So mail order, they call it tsuhan in Japanese, in Japan. It's this is pre-internet, so they have big catalog. Every direct-to-consumer brand back then had just it was catalog shopping. So a free dial number, it's called, telephone number, and also a lot of business was done just through fax. So I remember the first ad we took out, it was a small, black and white quarter-page ad, and it cost, I think it was the equivalent of $600 or something like this. And I couldn't speak Japanese well enough to take orders by phone, but my wife at the time, she was still my girlfriend, but she was
employee
helping
number
me
one.
out. So
we
took out
employee and life partner number one.
Yeah, employee number one. Yeah. But so I finally had enough. I got enough samples and inventory, and then created a catalog. I would just a simple type out, and I printed it out at the convenience store. And then so the hours of operation were basically from 7 in the evening until 9, something like this, right? And then fax was, of course, 24 hours. So we had 2 hours of taking phone orders. And if you look at, you're thinking back at this now, it's like, it's a pretty dumb idea, right? You're investing that money, advertising money, and you're giving people 2 hours to call you for orders, right? But anyway, so we did that, and pretty much right off the bat, it was only 2 hours and we only had one line, so the phone was busy the whole time, and people were calling and couldn't get through. So then the faxes started coming. So faxes just kind of started pouring in, and then I don't know if you're familiar, Dave, but they had a lot of cash on delivery, or they would send cash through envelopes, registered mail. And this really surprised me because, you would never send cash anywhere in Canada or the US, right? But people would just, yeah, every day, envelopes of cash with an order just written in it, and, perfectly calculated total. Just envelopes of cash would come in. And so this was our cash flow problem. This is prepaid orders, and I had established finance terms somehow. I don't even know how, but with our US, so we were paid like 60 days. We had net 60 with most of these our US vendors, and our Japanese customers would prepay in cash. That was the start, if you want to call it.
And so year one, what did you do in sales in that first year? It sounds like you had the right timing, you negotiated the right deals. What did you get up to? Do you remember that? It's a long time ago now.
It is a long time ago. I definitely remember the days where there was 0 orders. But I think I ran that ad, and I was still working full time for about 6 months. And then once I was making more than my salary and my wife's salary, then we went full time. And then full time was just making our business hours and the small advertisement from, I think it was 10 to 6 or something like this. And so I believe, I'm going to say we were doing, I think we might have done, 200,000 or something like that in the first year. I'm sorry, this is a long time ago, and I don't really remember.
No, but I mean, when you think about it, right, that's a great start to a business that you're starting essentially, self-funded, side hustle, because you're still working your full-time job. That's impressive, right? No, that's amazing. So you started with those products you were importing. What eventually led to you developing your own products? Because that was around, I met you maybe not 20 years ago, but probably close to it. And by that time, you were developing a lot of your own products, and your trajectory was already like a rocket ship at that time. So maybe can you walk us through those early years and maybe some of the perhaps struggles that you kind of, faced and obviously got through?
So, it was definitely trial and error at that point. And so one of the first hurdle we had was the regulations for import in Japan. And like I mentioned, we had first, all of our US brands were sending us just small amounts of product as sample use. And once our business was large enough that we had to import in volume, so I still remember the first order of that product, which was, I think it was 1 pallet or 2 pallets worth of product. But so I started as it was a bulk order. So our first bulk order, and I had to do some fundraising for that. And that was the fundraising. I went to all my investors, which was my wife, myself, my mom, and my grandmother. And I think in total it was 200万 or 300万in between that. So, between $20,000 and $30,000.
Yeah, Yeah. So would that be,
U.S. Canadian, right?
well, at that time, now it's like, I don't know, the U.S.
Yeah,
dollar is so strong right now. But yes, at that time, twenty to thirty
yeah.
thousand dollars.
Um, so that was that was a startup, and uh, rented an office and all of this, and then I think we had our first employee was my wife's cousin, and anybody we could grab off the street to help us pack boxes and stuff like this. But I remember our first bulk order was I think it was 1 pallet worth of product, and it was just about $10,000. So, pretty much half to a third of our startup funds. And I had purchased, essentially it was one pallet of product. And I got a call from the customs clearance agency, and they said, we need your import license to and registration for these products to deliver them. And so I didn't have any of that registration, and so they said, we're gonna have to destroy it or send it back, right? And yeah, so that was the first huge blow, and that that kind of knowledge or that research that I bypassed, and I couldn't find anywhere. And to be honest, I didn't really search. I was just looking for the transaction and where the customer was. That was my focus. So from then, I had to figure out how to import in bulk, and I had found actually he was another Canadian guy, and he had an import company, and he was importing some foods and actually some other supplements. So I kind of partnered with him to get the bulk imports, and we started a distribution company. So we can distribute to all of the gyms and all of these larger sales channels with him. And so that was, I created an offshoot. It was a distribution, and he was a partner, and he had some shares in that company. And we had some employees in that company as well. And our main business was still personal imports. So we would, smaller orders. But at the time, they were still, the average order was about $300. So, $300 per order. So back then, I think, Japanese were spending a lot more on products like this, and it was, the market wasn't as big, so there wasn't that much competition. But so I broke the business into two. So there was the distribution side, import and distribution side, and then the personal import side. But the personal import side also, we would have orders coming in. So we were basically getting so many orders in that customs recognized that this wasn't just for personal use. So, they came and told me, they basically, everything I learned in business was from the authorities coming and, trying to penalize us or give us fines and yeah, it was
more hard knocks.
Hard knocks. And actually the tax bureau, the tax agency, they came and gave me an audit right off the bat. And but me being me, I don't think I didn't intend to to bypass, to not pay taxes. My research into doing business in Japan was a conversation with my sister's boyfriend at the time, who had the only business owner in Japan that I knew, and so he had a small surf shop. And so I asked him, how do you register as a business and what do you do with taxes? And he told me, David, in Japan, you don't pay taxes until they come and they'll calculate how much taxes you have to pay. And I was like, okay, sounds good to me, right?
Awesome. What
Yeah.
awesome surfer advice. That's wicked.
And that's exactly what happened, right? So they called me up out of the blue and said, this is a tax audit on your company. And so, yeah, every part of building a proper business in terms of like regulatory and, the model came from all of these agencies that were basically, in effect, finding me or trying to find me. But but because I think Japanese are they're not basically pretty kind people, right? And when I met them, I guess they understood that it wasn't my intention to bypass this. They were like, this kid really does not know what the hell he's doing, right? And so they would always give me a chance, and plus, a lot of them became kind of like an advisory role to me, because I would ask them, things that no other person in their career would have asked them, right? So, imagine like a guy from the IRS who's auditing a company. I would, take that time and ask them like, just kind of like tax strategies and whatnot, right? And so some of these guys, like our main tax accountant, to this day, he was introduced by the guy that audited us, and yeah, and
That's awesome.
so a lot of these guys kind of took advisory roles to me for some reason. And later on I figured out that all people generally, if you're not looking to do bad, and you're genuine about doing things the right way, but you just don't know how, and in that situation, a lot of people will help you out that you don't know. And a lot of that startup ignorance was what led to the success, in hindsight. One thing that I like to mention is I knew from the beginning when I started the whole thing that I wanted my own brand. Just because I love products. I love good products. So even when I was as a kid, maybe going back to that BMX, I would kind of inspect products, and I had like a genuine interest and desire to build good products. I don't know if it's like an engineering kind of I don't know, mentality or whatnot, but for some reason I always would dissect products and look at them in all aspects, the packaging, the labels, everything. But so I always knew I wanted my own brand, but I just wanted to touch on how like the startup ignorance, and also not always having like a white belt mentality, right, is helpful, especially when you're starting up. But because I always wanted my own brand, and I knew that I was creating customer demand for that brand, and also the sales channels. So in the back of my mind, I always had this. So when I was first starting, I was trying to figure out the sourcing, where to source the best ingredients for these food products. And through my research, I found the best manufacturer of amino acids in the world, and they happen to be in Japan, a Japanese company, Ajinomoto, right? And this is when I was just starting off. So when I had that small, $600 ad in the magazine. So I didn't even have my own domain. It was like a Hotmail account or something like this. But I figured out that I wanted the best ingredients for my product that I would have someday in the future. I didn't know when. So I looked up Ajinomoto, and the inquiry button. So I found that inquiry button, and I shot off an email to Ajinomoto, and like, hi, my name is David Halton. I'm starting a business. Someday I'd like to purchase your amino acids for my own brand. I heard they're the best. Can I set up a meeting? Or I don't even know. Can't even remember. But just the thought of like our junior employee would shoot an email to a multi-billion-dollar global company and expect anything to happen. To me, to this day, it kind of it seems very juvenile, or I don't know, non-business-like, right? But that was my mentality, and probably still is to this day. I think it's a strength to not limit yourself in terms of thinking that people won't reply or respond because of your lack of experience or the image of such. But from that email, a guy, a higher up in Ajinomoto, I'll shout him out, Taguchi-san. Thank you for that email. So he basically called me the next day and he said, hey, I'm going to come see you in Sendai. Can I visit your office tomorrow or something like this, right? He called me up and I was like, wow, but if he comes, he's going to figure out that I'm just this startup kid in a messy apartment. So I told him, yeah, our office is going, we're going to do some renovations soon. So can I meet you at the cafe, right? And he kind of chuckled and said, yeah, sure. And I met him at the cafe. But he turned out to be instrumental in the production of our own brand, my own brand, when I kicked it off. And in between, he was kind of my first business mentor and set me up with some other people in the industry. But all of that to say this, that I had the goal of creating my own brands and my own business, the best products in the world, and all of the regulatory stuff and all of the organizational stuff I never really looked at, and I just thought I'd handle them as I went on and as necessary. As necessary meaning, when these regulatory bodies come and tell you, no, you can't do this, or you can't do that, or we're going to fine you for doing this. Excuse me, I'm done. So my first hardships were when I was trying to import for both businesses I had at the time, the end user business, direct to consumer, and to the distribution. And so one day I get a call from customs, and for the distribution side, there was a change in the tariff code. So basically the amount of tax they were charging for importation of the American protein products we had changed. So either they had made a mistake on the customs end, or there was going to be an overhaul of that tariff code. So essentially that business was going to be finished. All of the products that we had imported, our next order the tax would double or triple. So that business was done after we had, after our remaining inventory. So that was that on the distribution side. And I think we had a month and a half worth of inventory, and I had a partner in that company, and we had several employees. And so that business, just in a phone call, that business was done. It was finished.
And how many years into business was this for you?
I believe that business we started, maybe 3 years into the personal import business. So 3 years, but it had been running for, I'm going to say 2 or 3 years.
Okay. So this is still early days for you, right?
Yeah, still early days, but very, very successful because it was a great product and the price point was cheap. I guess it was too cheap, and that's why they wanted to protect the domestic market, or whatever the reason was. That company was done. And at the time as well, I had on the personal import, I also had a call from a different agency of customs, but they told me I was importing too large a volume for the personal imports, and the actual structure had to be shipped directly from our U.S. brands to the domestic customer. So this is a structure that, it was kind of like a gray area, or just like a young area in Japan at the time. And that's why Jetro, they didn't have any information on it. And I was basically developing that market in Japan as we were going along. So they were, still to this day, it's a gray area, but this was before Amazon. So that also, they told me, they were stopping, I think it was, like half of our orders or more than that, and returning them back to us at that point. So this was also, this business was very, very limited. And this hit us at basically the same time. And that was, emotionally very draining, plus financially. Our revenues basically were halved on the personal import, and then on the distribution side, we would have zero revenue after we sold our remaining inventory. And I was basically in a state of depression after 2 to 3 months in that situation. But anyway, I had to set up a US hub to consolidate all of our orders from the US vendors, because they couldn't ship directly to our customers in Japan, right? And again, so this is before Amazon, and so I thought I had to consolidate all of our orders. So I had to, I was facing these, do or die situations, but I have many times in life. So, it's just a matter of, just looking. If you look too much in the future and you do too much research, then you're not going to be able to move. That's what I always feel. So I'm always just like movement, right? Just get started, get some momentum going. So at that time, I had to figure out how to get these orders directly to our customers and not through us in Japan. The only thing that came to mind was to create a company in the US that all of our vendors, our US vendors, can ship to in bulk, and then we could break down their orders and ship directly from there to our customer in Japan. And me being Canadian, I had no contacts in the US, didn't even have a passport or business license. So I had to figure out how to do this, by myself. And so now it was online, but still. So what I did was I bought a ticket to the U.S. and I still didn't do any research on the best place to build a business in the U.S. Right, start a business. So I just asked people, where's a good place in? I think I asked my wife, where's a good place to start in the U.S. And she said, you know what? I spent some time in San Diego, and that was a very nice place. I said, okay, San Diego sounds good, right? Turns out to be, one of the, California is one of the most difficult places to do business in the world, I think. But so I said, okay, I'm gonna, I just bought a ticket to San Diego. I think it was in about a week's time. So I bought a ticket to San Diego, and I got to San Diego airport. I knew nobody in America that can start a business with me. So I had to call one of my friends who is also like an ex-gang member, only guy that I knew that I could trust from Calgary in my old days there. And plus I wanted to get them out of the, that situation they were in. So I said, I called him up and what are you doing? He's like, nothing. You want to start a business in the US and run it for me? And he said, yeah. So I said, okay, meet me in San Diego on this day. I'll meet you at the airport. Met him at the airport. We get out of the airport. We get to a phone booth. I pulled out the white pages and spent 2 hours at the phone booth.
For the young people listening, a phone booth is what people used before cell phones. Yeah.
Yeah. So I probably have to explain what the white pages are to people, right? But this is back when they had phone booths before the cell phones. Well, they still had cell phones, but you had to be either a drug dealer or a CEO to have one. So, but the white pages had listings of all businesses and all phone numbers, all contacts. So pre-web for all the youngsters out there. So I started this business in the phone booth outside of San Diego Airport. Opened up the white pages, and what do I need to start a business in the U.S.? You need a business attorney. We needed to find an apartment. We need to get a bank account, find a warehouse. All of that we did in 2 hours at the San Diego airport. And so I spent about a week there, setting up the business. And then I had to apply for an investor visa, and that was a whole different, thing. But through all of those trials and errors, I figured out that all of business is building you're trying to create a moat around the business, right? And have it survive until you can get to your next goal, right? So financially, and so essentially you're trying to remove every threat to your business in the long term. So the biggest threat at that time for us was our product is coming from the US. So we're dealing with different changing import laws and taxation rates, plus supply chain and all of these things. And just out of need and necessity to keep our companies alive and being able to pay our employees, then I figured out that, okay, we need to build this thing domestically, right? So we have to have all of our products, all of our distribution domestically, where I can go and really handle things man to man, if required. So from there, this is where, again, every business chance, every time my business has had a successful or a significant bump in size and growth and revenue, it's been through just a so-called serendipitous meeting of people. And looking back, you realize that nothing is coincidental in life, right? Everything has meaning, and it's all part of a pattern. But as I said, the people that I met, so the gentleman I met from Ajinomoto at the time, whenever I had questions about business in Japan, I would call him and he would, offer his help. So I told him, I called him up one day and I said, Taguchi-san, I need to produce products in Japan to replace the products I was importing and selling to all the gyms and all the stores. So to protect this sales channel and all of our employees, I need to produce the same products or better at the same price point and within a month and a half, basically, right? I mean, this is
That's
so
crazy timeline, man.
yeah. I mean, knowing what I know today, and if you're making any product in my industry, it'll take minimum 6 months. So 6 months is just like product testing and scheduling to get into the production line of these factories, right? It takes 3 months to get in. So, but me always being the the naive industry disruptor, if you want to call it that. But so I asked him that, and he's he wasn't even able to laugh with me, right? He was just like he was just kind of like, he's like, I don't even know where to start with this problem, David, but I do know a guy that has a supplement manufacturing plant, and I can make you the introduction, but this is not something that's, to me, sounds feasible at all, right? And I'm sorry about your situation, but he gave me the contact information for a manufacturer that can produce all of these products in Japan. And he was kind of local. So we're in Sendai and he was in Iwate, which is like an hour away by bullet train. So anyway, so I grabbed the contact. I've got basically a month and a half to make this work. I got to get these products done. And so I had to also formulate the products, and I also had to come up with a brand, right? So that's how, and I believe at that time I was actually in San Diego setting up this other business. And I was with my partner, and we were at like a diner at like 2 o'clock in the morning doing stuff. And I was explaining the situation to my partner. And we had also gone through some supply chain issues in the U.S. with my other business. So making a brand for ourselves was a necessity in that business at the same time. So we're coming up with a brand name, and we're writing ideas on a napkin. And and it was something sports, blah blah blah. But then I thought, what do you think of Halio? Because my first name is Halton and his last name is Leo. And to us it was just kind of like an inside joke. It's like, we're just laughing about it, but yeah, it kind of sounds cool, right? It doesn't really have a name, it doesn't really have a meaning, but. And so bang, so okay, I got the name, Halio. And now I got to figure out how to produce the products in the US for our direct-to-consumer customers, and then in Japan also for our distribution channel customers. From there I called the gentleman Taguchi-san from Ajinomoto introduced me to, and I got a meeting with him. So I went up to Iwate, and I'm still kind of green because I didn't do a lot of B2B and not with a lot of Japanese either. You know, I'm always direct with our customers, and I'm also always in the product side. Like I'm a product guy. I'm a, you know, R&D guy. So I wasn't good with meeting with, you know, bankers or other CEOs or sales at the time. I'm still not. I still don't. I've got the best guys to do that for me. So, but anyway, I had to pitch this guy to create all of these products for us, and I met him, and it was interesting because this was another do or die situation, and probably the first for this business that we faced, and I'm not sure if it was even if I had the confidence or not, but it was just like this has got to be done. And when things are so tight that it has to be done, I don't think there's a doubt. You know, it's like it's really survival. So I didn't really have a doubt in my mind either. But I was definitely nervous, right? And so I get to the factory, and it was lunchtime. So they had a obento for me, like a lunch box, and I was sitting there in the meeting room, and they told me that at 1 o'clock, the president will come out and see you, and just to sit here, wait for him, and eat this lunch box. So I'm eating the lunch, and this old guy comes out, and he's not in a suit and tie, so he's in like a uniform, and he was kind of like sweeping the floor, and he asked me where I'm from, who I'm here to meet, and my Japanese wasn't great at that time, but I told him I'm here to see the boss, and I'm kind of nervous, you know, blah blah blah, and then he sat down, and he started talking, and then he gave me his card, and then I couldn't read his business card, but you know, we were talking for 5 to 10 minutes, and then I just kind of got the feeling that, oh, like this guy is not the janitor. This guy is actually the president, right?
Oh man.
Yeah. So he came out, and it was supposed to be my lunchtime, and I was supposed to meet him at 1, but he came out at like 12:20 and just kind of started chit-chatting, and then he sat down.
He undercover bossed you, man.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I figured out that oh crap, this is the boss. But it was also good because I was super nervous, and we had the whole meeting not in his fancy office, but it was in the waiting room basically, and so I basically gave him this pitch that we needed $150,000, $150,000 in product made for us in a month and a half. And plus the kicker is I have no money, and I have no history of doing business because I didn't have any bank loans or anything like that. It was all like a cash flow basis, and we only dealt with American companies at that time, and so that meeting, at the end of the meeting, he looked at me and he said, listen, I'll produce for you $300,000 worth of product, but the fastest we can do it is in, I believe it was 2 months at the time. And you go out and you sell this product, and you pay me back when you can. Yeah. So, this is, not only Yeah, not only life-saving, but, and this is the first time I ever met this guy. Right? So like I'm almost like I get emotional even thinking about it at the time, but right now. But so I get back on the train, and so not only am I able to keep the lights on and keep paying our employees, and they've got families at this point, but I've got a guy that is going to produce all the products that we need. I just have to go out there and, obviously create the best product on the market, but go out and sell them, right? So I got back on the train, and I was kind of in tears, and I remember in my mind just making a promise, making a goal, setting a goal that, number one, I'm going to be the best customer for this guy, for his business, his biggest customer. I'm going to be his biggest customer, and then I'm also going to be a big customer to Ajinomoto, and also be able to. In Japan, you have to be an established brand, a trusted brand, with a good, a high level of credibility for any legacy brands in Japanese corporations to do business with you. You have to be basically like a 50-year-old business that's, not fly by night, basically. But my goal was to create a direct relationship with Ajinomoto. So both of those came true, right? And to this day, whenever both of my friends, these guys that have really helped me out, whenever there's an event, I'll come and give this exact talk with them. So yeah, that was the start of our own brands. So they came out of necessity and naivety and ignorance, but just doing what I could do to the best of my ability at that point. So just putting one foot forward, and eventually things will work out better. But you always have to believe, and more importantly, I think you have to ask. You can't be afraid.
So David, thank you. That was a super inspiring story. I think the listeners will have a lot of takeaways from that. So now I'm assuming 2 months later you got your product and you were able to start selling it. So kind of take us through maybe the next, 5-10 years as you were growing the business, right? Haleo was your first in-house product. Take us through just a little bit around kind of what was the trajectory after you kind of came through that difficult period?
Yeah, it was just, I actually didn't have, I think okay, I'm trying to think here. From that time onward, or even, I might not have really had a plan of action, so to speak. I've always had one main kind of goal for myself anyway, and sorry, I'm kind of just I'm getting lost in my own thoughts here, Dave, but for me, it's always been just kind of head down and focusing on what I get fulfillment out of, right? And I really enjoy just creating things, and just the way that I think is the best in terms of functional taste, design, usability, all of these things. So I really didn't focus too much on advertising, definitely not marketing, no marketing research. I don't really see I never see, competitors as competitors, because I'm always looking at the essence of the products, I think. And so from the time that I got our own products, our main brand is still Halio. And as that developed, I had always just been, kept my head down and been focused on creating more of the products that I like to use myself. That's always my thing too. I never make anything based on like market research on what the market wants or what is a trend. I always I just make what I like to use, what I would like to use, or what I think is cool, or what I would like to have in my life. And that goes with everything, from apparel to water to, supplements, anything that I use. I tend to try to dissect it and then figure out how to make it better. So after that, that challenge was resolved, then I could just focus on creating the best products possible. And I think I had a couple of years of just creating products. So our brand went from, the initial, I believe it was 3 products, to maybe 20 in the span of 2 years, I think. So yeah, and it's
That is
fast,
man. And all the while you're using that same partner
Yep.
that helped you out of the jam. Is that right? They're basically your
Yes.
contract manufacturer.
But in that meantime, when I've just been, kept my head down and creating the products, that we started to get a lot of calls from famous athletes. I kept my head down so much that I don't watch sports. I never watch TV, so I don't know, who's famous in Japan or whatnot, right? But occasionally, my teammates or some employees would be like, David is the most famous blah 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 in Japan is, using our product, or they're calling or whatnot, right? So without really, I was so focused on product development that I didn't see that how well our products were being received by the top people in many industries, so entertainment and athletes and whatnot. So by the 2 or 3 years down the road, people were requesting meetings from top athletes and then athletic organizations that would kind of follow these athletes and entertainers that are influencers, and just had different opportunities to expand that way.
I think you've been ahead of the game on using what now people they're marketing brands through influencers. You've been doing that for decades, and very, very successfully. I mean, that was one of the first things I remember. You were sponsoring, but when you sponsor, those aren't traditional sponsorships, right? Are you just doing product placements, like basically supplying them with product because they actually like the product, versus other brands that they have to pay to basically have them
so
use
basically, and it's interesting now because a lot of the people that are now champions, the guys that are now champions, so we have athletes, and basically every athlete are focused on getting the best trainers and nutritionalists and all kinds of healing modalities. But these guys would, through their research, they would find us, and they would make a call or they would email or whatnot. But the top of the top guys, they have the money, so they're not searching for endorsement deals or anything like this, right? They're always top professionals, not just athletes, but in business or in any field. They've got this radar that's tuned for the best, right? So you're looking, as an athlete, you're looking for the best trainer, the best techniques, the best information, the best food products. And so they just kind of gravitate to us, and they actually purchase our products, right? And they would ask us if we can, if I could teach them how to use the product in the best way possible, basically. And after that, it became more of a lot of these athletes would be interested in the spirit of craftsmanship. So like how did you build this product, and what's important to you? So I find that mental frequency, I think, the top level people, they just kind of identify other people that are top in different fields, and they can find similarities or hints on how to better their own art, so to speak, right? So I never approached anybody like, this guy's a famous guy, he's got some influence, we want to pay him to endorse our product. It's never that. It's always them coming to us and not asking for money, because they're not in it for the money. Sometimes they have a corporate sponsor for a different supplement company, but because they always want the best, they use our product, right? They have that relationship with us. So yeah, it was never an influencer thing. It was kind of more of a friendship and a mutual respect for being at the top of your game. And these guys, so some of these guys would just ask, can I put the logo on my training gear, or like I have a competition coming up, I'm going to be on TV. Can I wear your hat or something like this, right? And so they're asking me, right? And I'm like, of course, right? But I'd be happy to do that. And so this is actually how our apparel line got launched. Was some of the top martial artists. This is back when Pride and MMA was big in Japan, but they would wear our logo on their fight wear. And then there was one guy that had a championship fight, and we had to make up a bunch of T-shirts for his whole team. And so we made these T-shirts, and then we had a bunch left over, and we said we might as well try to sell these online, and they just sold out. So basically our whole apparel line was launched from these guys that were using our products, our nutritional products, but they had a heavy influence in all other things. So yeah, and even to this day, I don't. These guys will introduce other people that have a similar mentality, and so we've built this brand. It's not. It's building a brand is really interesting because there's no blueprint for it, and you could dump a ton of money into it, or it doesn't take any money, but to build and for it to take off, as a brand, it's really interesting thing to try to fathom. And I don't think there's one way to do it, but I think it's mostly what you do not do. It's more of what you don't do. You don't sell out. You don't compromise. You don't associate with people and products kind of chasing the fast buck. Sometimes it's difficult when you're in the startup stage because it's always a matter of getting cash in before it runs out, right? But keeping to the core of building a great product, I think, is most important in building the brand.
So let me ask you this. I know you've done, you have a very similar philosophy. You want to surround yourself with high quality people, teachers, mentors. Maybe could you speak to some of the mentors in your life that have taught you some valuable lessons? And you could mention one or two, but I know I've always admired that about you as well. You've always had really strong mentors in your life, and from all different areas, not just business. Do you mind speaking to that? Because I think that's a really important lesson for entrepreneurs as they're growing themselves in addition to their business.
That's a interesting question, because I don't have one person that I think is a mentor. I mentioned the two gentlemen that really helped me out, and I owe them a lot to the success. But for me, I think I learned so much from every person. I make it a point to learn from every person that I spend any time with in the day. Like I said, when we got a tax audit, I kind of reversed the situation where I'm spending all of his time asking him questions, right? So there's something to be learned from everybody and anywhere you go. So what I do, I make it a point to do is to get out and interact with as many different industries, as many different people as possible. And especially guys that are kind of in the top of their game, but a wide variety of people, like in any industry and anything. And just really kind of have your antennas or your radar open to what you can pick up from anything, and then use that as a tool to get to where you want to go, or whatever you want to do. And I see that with a lot of the top performing people in any industry. They are they never question, like, what is this meeting about, or what can I get from this, or is this person qualified to give me information or direction? These people will find that, valuable hints and tools and information in any situation, in anything they do, any interaction. So I believe that's my mindset, and I see that in a lot of successful people.
Thank you for that. So I would be interested to hear kind of what led you to becoming the owner and the chairman of the 89ers basketball team. Obviously, it's based in Sendai. You're looking to support your community, but like you said before, you're very focused on your business. Kind of what was the timeline, and what was the inspiration for making that kind of diversification in your holdings and in your time?
Okay, so this was maybe 5 years ago. So the year that we purchased the majority of the shares, so we had the ownership stake in the team, in the club. The year that we took ownership was the year that COVID actually started. So yeah, interesting, interesting timing. But the professional basketball league in Japan, there was until 6 or 7 years ago, there was always two leagues. So there was one kind of a corporate league with all of the big corporations, Toyota, a lot of these old Japanese corporations would have their own kind of corporate league, and all of the players in that league were essentially employees of these teams, and they kind of played on pride, right? So Toyota versus I don't know, like a Honda or something. And then there was another league that was more of a commercial league. It was called the B League. And so Japan had these two professional basketball leagues for, I think it was about 10 years. But neither of the leagues were really growing at the time. And there was some movement to get the Japanese Olympic team stronger. And in order to do so, you needed a kind of a unification to get all of the teams, kind of all of the focus into one professional league in Japan. So the guy that coordinated the professional Japanese soccer league came on board and created which is now known as the B League, the Basketball League of Japan. And so when they created that league 2 years prior to us taking over the Sendai 89ers. And so once they merged both leagues, they created some qualifications to be a league, a team owner. So each team had some financial obligations and different criteria to continue as a team within the B League. And one of the regulatory people of the B League, they had some concerns about the current ownership, or the prior ownership of the Sendai 89ers at the time. So they had started to research local companies that would be interested in taking over the team in Sendai. And so a friend of mine was approached as a local company to take over the team as a potential buyer of the team. And my friend he was retired. He was a retired businessman. And he said it probably wasn't the best match for him, but he thought of me and he thought, we would be the perfect owner for the team, being in this, kind of the sports nutrition industry, and been around that area for decades. So I was introduced through him, and it had some similarities where we can branch out and expand our own brands and the sports nutrition business. But for me, it was more of a new learning experience that I knew I could learn. Like I said, I like to look at anything that I use or consume, and then I tried to figure out, like, reverse engineer it, but from a completely naive, brain. So that's what it was. Okay, the sports business. Now I get a chance to figure out how it works, and not hopefully, but I know I can always make a better product. I've got that confidence. So that's how that came into play.
And then when I think you have actually now sold your interest in the team, Are you still planning to stay within the sports kind of business now that you've gotten some experience in it, or are you going to take a break for a while?
Yes. So for me, the big thing I think for a lot of entrepreneurs is we all tend to desire freedom. You know, freedom is it's a big thing for entrepreneurs, I believe, and working with a league, working with you know, the government, it doesn't allow for a lot of freedom, even creative freedom. So, and I figured that out, and that was kind of my first eye-opening experience that I attribute to being involved, you know, being a team owner. There was various times, you know, when I was fined by the league and warned by the league and things like that were kind of fun because it made, you know, the team liked it, the team enjoyed. I would be kind of acting on the team's behalf and, you know, going against the league, and they would be laughing and say, I saw you got fined and stuff like that. But anyway, you know, I always operate best in, you know, when I've got the freedom to choose and to do things that I like. So I don't know if I'll be involved again in that capacity, but and I also don't plan too much in the future. It's, you know, things kind of come to me, and then when I can see it, when I can see the full picture mentally, then it's only a matter of time until everybody can see it in this reality too. So it's not something I see right now, but I do see somehow being involved, like as maybe an arena ownership, or kind of like a IMG type. So having a performance center where all athletes can get the best and the highest tech training and conditioning and support, and then giving them proper management, or like an agency. I do see that in the future.
Beautiful. Well, we'll look forward to seeing that become, you know, like you said, you turn your vision into reality. I have no doubt you'll do it.
Yeah. And never say never, because the other day, the local sporting company, whose owner also is a big ice hockey guy, he just asked me the other day, he's like, David, you want to start a ice hockey team in Sendai with me? And then I didn't say no, so, you know.
That would be great. I look forward to it, man.
Yeah.
I look forward to it. Mm-hmm. So, David, what else do you have? I know you have. I mean, we could spend hours going through. You have your I'm CrossFit gym in Daikanyama. You have the Quintet FC. I mean, actually, please tell the listeners about that. I find it fascinating, not only because I did judo, but it's just a very unique group. Do you mind speaking about that?
Which one, the Quintet?
The Quintet, yeah, because it's not something that I had heard of before looking it up to kind of like just prep for the interview. I hadn't heard of it because we don't. I mean, it may be around here, but I've never heard of it. It was new to me. Yeah.
So Quintet FC it's a martial arts organization. So basically it's a ground grappling. So it's a non-striking martial arts organization, and we have matches that are team matches. So there's five fighters on each team, and it's based on like a judo system. So it's by total weight. So 5 guys, the total weight of the guys combined. And there's an order for the 5 guys that you can, it's very interesting because you can have strategies built on, you can have the first guy who's really, really strong. And if that first guy wins, if he beats all 5 guys, that team wins. Or as long as you win, you stay in the competition. So, but it makes it interesting strategy where you put your heaviest guys and your lightest guys, and you don't know what the other team, the order of the size of the other guys are until the match starts. So it's quite a fun rule set, and it's very unique to this. And as in the martial arts organizations and the martial arts business, it's dominated primarily by a handful, like everybody knows of the UFC. And then there's a handful of other organizations that are competitions, but the big guys are the UFC, right? And the UFC ties up all of the best athletes in the world. But so there's all of those athletes can only compete in the UFC. But where there's an opportunity for them to compete in other organizations is in grappling or jiu-jitsu, right? So non-striking. So we're able to have like the biggest stars of those MMA organizations, the UFC, compete if it's in a grappling competition. So ours is like a mixture of grappling and jiu-jitsu. So so we can have the biggest names compete in our organization. So that gives us an interesting, and those guys, if they compete, they bring their fan base as well, right? So it makes an interesting business model as well as just a great concept. And so that, yeah, we created that. I created that actually with, there's a legendary fighter in Japan. His name is Sakuraba. So he's big in Japan, and created that organization with him. Also, that was like 3 years prior to COVID, and then COVID, nothing happened. But we're just getting up and started again. This year we should have a couple of fights, and then we'll see how that goes. But
that's great. Well, I'll put a
that's
link.
Quintet FC.
I'll put a link in the description. I'm sure we'll have lots of people who listen who will want to watch as those get published. So David, can you tell us, as you go into the future, what's interesting you? Like where are you being pulled in terms of new businesses?
My biggest focus right now, the thing that excites me, I've actually got 2. I just got back from Shanghai, as you know. There was one thing there, but most exciting right now is we just purchased the rights to 2 reserves of mineral water, so drinking mineral water in Japan. It's called onsen water, so it's like a geyser water. It's called geothermal water. But as we know, we're facing shortages in food and water, energy. So yeah, this is something that I'm super excited about. It's going to be not only big in terms of the scale of the business, but on the positive impact we can have on the community in Japan and then the rest of the world as well. The reason I see this as the size of the business is like nothing else that I've experienced until now, because I see it as $1 billion business, but within first 5 to 10 years, $500 million. So our target is $500 million business in water, and but we have to get, something's telling me that we have to get this business out and with the biggest and most impact as quickly as possible. So I'm putting together a team now and considering different types of investment and investment vehicles for this product, for this company. But if you look at
that's incredible. And David, is that all domestic in Japan only, or are you thinking this would be sold globally?
Yeah, domestic in terms of the figures, because those are based on other drinkable onsen companies in Japan, and there's only 6 companies have the rights to produce and sell drinking water in Japan. Sorry, the type of onsen water that we're selling. And yeah, so that market share is about that size, but the rest of the drinking water is also of that scale. So, and after that, anything above that is international, which I see, I think we can do a better job than any other import brands. So you've got Evian, you've got Fiji, you've got Fuji, some other things, but there's a lot of different physical properties that are very unique to our water, and non-physical properties as well, which is a little difficult to explain. But I just know that we've got a better product, and our intention for the use of this natural product, I don't see it in terms of as our product, because it's part of nature and we're part of nature. So I'm humbled and honored to be able to direct the flow of this energy. It's a energy source, right? Back into use it for good. And the reason I'm so excited, and the reason I know it's huge, because if you look at any business, right? If you want to see the success of any business or in life, I see all business as directing the flow of energy only, right? Because everything is energy. I mean, if you look at say quantum physics, right? So that is just the identifying everything on an atomic level. So you see everything as a proton and electrons and atoms, and then a subatomic particle. So these are all, everything, if you break it down to the smallest particles, everything is just moving energy, right? Vibrating energy. And when we start a business, and when you're young especially, right, you just feel like, oh, I've got a lot of physical energy. And when you're using that physical energy, like when I was going out and selling my products at bodybuilding competitions, you're using your own life force energy, and your energy is always, it never starts, never ends, but it just transforms, right? So the shape changes. So we're typically using our own life force energy, we're changing it in shape to money, to currency, and then into product, and then that product adds energy to the consumer, and it's just a cycle of energy, right? And we can increase that energy cycle within our business by adding more employees, adding more customers. But to get the real, on a real scale, we have geyser water energy. So this is the source of energy, and what is believed to be an unlimited supply of this energy. So now we're just kind of directing it and recycling it to people, and then it becomes part of the economy, when it transforms into the temporary shape form of money, and then just kind of recycling that energy and directing the flow of it. So yeah, it's going to be, it's an amazingly huge, it's not even a possibility, it's already a done deal, and it's in my mind, I can see it. And it's like nothing else, no other business, like it creates a moat around a business, and it takes out all of the weaknesses, the threats to the longevity of our current business, right? So I can see this as a centuries old, this could be for our children and children's children.
That's incredible. Well, David, man, you're super inspiring, brother. I have no doubt that it will be hugely successful. But maybe as we, you spent hours with us here now, I would just see if maybe you could pass on maybe some words of wisdom or advice for people who are looking to start a business in Japan, or perhaps, take a product into Japan. What advice would you give them from someone who truly went there with no experience or knowledge, and you've become extremely successful? Do you have any words of wisdom that you might be able to share with someone who is just literally looking to take a product from North America or just really enter into the Japanese market?
First of all, I'm going to say, not on an entrepreneurial level, or not on not as a person who wants to market into Japan, but just as an entrepreneur or a person in general, a human in this existence. Number one, just know that you have everything that you need to make any success that you can even fathom, you can even dream of, and never, never, never doubt that, right? Like I said earlier, things work out, you get a so-called chance meeting or a coincidence, but it's all there for you. The universe or God or whatever word you want to give it, it will deliver to you exactly what you ask for. But you have to believe it. You have to believe it so much that other people around you believe in you, and they'll take that chance on you. And there's many times when you're faced with a fear or a doubt. And it could be whatever that fear, whatever that doubt is, whatever that anxiety is. I believe that's your higher self giving you this final thing that, listen, take the leap, believe in it. And only those that do that will be able to achieve anything that they believe in. But that's my number one thing. So, even to this day, after all of this, and I know that everything is possible for anybody, I still have a doubt. For example, with this water thing, I know it, I see it, I smell it, I taste it, but I still have a thing that I'm too small for this, But I also realize that this is telling me that exactly why I should do this. I have to defeat this one last demon. So always believe in yourself. Know that you can do it, and never be afraid to ask the higher entity or the higher energy, whatever. Ask other people. always, always, always believe in yourself, because nobody else is going to believe in you more than you can believe in yourself. So that's that. If you want to, if you want to get into Japan, and that's kind of more of like a physical kind of technical side, but for that as well, I think Japanese really appreciate how much you're invested into Japan. So, big foreign brands are kind of, if they're trendy, they'll give it a chance. They'll try it once or twice. But I think Japanese really like to understand the person that's behind the product, behind the brand, what their philosophy is, and if they have some kind of investment into Japan. So not a monetary investment, but you're here for the long term. You're not just a fly-by-night. You're not just trying to create a trend, but you're here trying to contribute, or you really love this aspect of Japan, and you're trying to infuse some kind of a Japanese mentality or characteristic into your product, into Japan, then I think they will accept it as a kind of almost as a finished in Japan product. So it might not be born in Japan, so it has that unique Western flavor, but if it's, Japanese like to tweak it or kind of refine it in a way that they feel like they have some kind of attachment or involvement in it, then it really takes off. So it goes from, like a 10 to like 100, if you can figure that out. So either be here or have a good Japanese partner that understands that. That would be my recommendation if you want to get into Japan.
So thank you, David. That was beautiful. I really appreciate you making the time to be with us here today. And I think there's so many other questions that maybe we could do a part 2 in person one day in the near future. But thank you, David. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks again, Dave. This was I'm not going to say therapeutic, but this is I love talking about this. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to do so.
Hi, thanks for watching this episode of Founders in the Wild. Please remember to like and subscribe. Thanks again.